Hello Lions fans! Between the intense joint practices with the New York Giants and the injuries from the preseason opener, our roster's been looking a bit thin. Names like Emmanuel Mosley, Nate Lynn, and Connor Galvin are now facing long-term recoveries, and several others have been sidelined since those joint sessions. At the beginning of this week we have some exciting news to share with you, but before we continue, make sure you've already hit the like button if you've been a Detroit Lions fan for over 25 years. If possible, write something like this: the Lions will make it to the Super Bowl. Dude, seriously, I don't know about you, but I really believe in it. Let's go Dan Campbell. Now, I know what you're thinking. Are these joint practices worth the risk? Injuries are an inherent part of football, whether you're scrimmaging against your own team or facing off with another. But it's hard to ignore that the heightened intensity of going toe-to-toe with another squad might ramp up that danger. And let's not forget the skirmishes that erupted last week, turning productive drills into timeouts. Even Coach Dan Campbell weighed in, saying, "When you have to stop practice that many times to reset the drill and load it, it's a waste of everybody's time." So, should we ditch these joint practices? In my view, absolutely not. Sure, the injury list is daunting, and it's tempting to pin the blame on these sessions. But let's face it, high-octane practices are crucial for gearing up our team for the grind of the regular season. Maybe the injury odds tick up a notch compared to regular practices, but remember, our Lions have always been about intensity, even in intra-squad scrimmages. Injuries lurk whenever the pads come on. As for the brawls with the Giants, chalk it up to an anomaly. Scuffles happen, it's part of the game's passion. This year was a bit extra, but everyone involved recognizes that and moves forward. Some teams, like the Chiefs and Raiders, steer clear of joint practices altogether. They've got their reasons. But there's a reason 30 out of 32 NFL teams embrace them. These sessions are gold. They expose our offense and defense to fresh looks and diverse schemes, potentially curbing injury risks. Think about it, starters get reps in a controlled, non-full tackling environment, shielding them from the harsher blows of preseason games. So, Lions Nation, where do you stand? Are joint practices a necessary evil, a valuable tool, or just too risky? Drop your thoughts below. Let's get the conversation roaring. Alright Lions fans, grab your favorite game day snack and settle in because we've got some breaking news coming out of Allen Park that you need to hear about. Now, we all know that football can be as unpredictable as Michigan weather. 1 minute the sun's shining, and the next, a storm rolls in. Well, unfortunately, it looks like that storm has hit our beloved Detroit Lions as training camp resumes. Let's dive right in. The Lions have made some tough roster moves today, and it's not the kind of news we were hoping for. First up, the offensive line takes a hit with the unfortunate departure of Connor Galvin. You might remember Galvin. He was showing some real promise out there, making those critical blocks that helped open up the run game. But here's the kicker, Galvin suffered a torn MCL, and that's going to require season-ending surgery. Yes, you heard that right, season-ending. He's been waived injured, which is a tough break for both the team and the young man. You never want to see someone's season cut short before it even really begins. But that's not all. Defensive lineman Nate Lynn, another guy who was starting to catch everyone's attention, is also on the shelf. Turns out, Nate suffered a shoulder injury that's bad enough to land him on injured reserve. This one stings, folks. If you caught Thursday's preseason game against the Giants, you saw Nate get in there and make some noise. He even notched one of those sacks we were all cheering for. But according to Dan Campbell, this shoulder injury is serious, and it's likely going to sideline him for the entire season. It's hard to believe, right? A guy with so much potential, sidelined just as he was starting to make his mark. It's a reminder of just how brutal this sport can be. Now, the Lions aren't just sitting back and taking these hits without making moves. In response to these injuries, the front office has brought in some reinforcements. Say hello to linebacker Abraham Beauplan and offensive tackle Jamarco Jones. These guys are coming in to help fill the gaps left by Galvin and Lynn, and they're here to compete. Jones, in particular, is an interesting pickup. He's got experience at both guard and tackle, with 36 games under his belt since being drafted by the Seattle Seahawks back in 2018. The big question now is whether he's going to stick around long enough to make the final roster or if he's just here as a camp body to keep the competition alive. Bo Plan, on the other hand, spent last season on the Minnesota Vikings practice squad. He's got a solid college career behind him, racking up 231 tackles and 23 tackles for loss during his time at Marshall. With Malcolm Rodriguez missing practice time due to his own injuries, Bo Plan's arrival couldn't have come at a better time. The linebacker room is thin, and we need guys who can step up and prove they belong on this roster. Dan Campbell also dropped a bit of a bombshell in his press conference today, calling this point in training camp the official start. According to him, this is when the real separation begins, when the men are separated from the boys. And with the preseason game against the Kansas City Chiefs coming up, he hinted that we might see some new faces, maybe even at quarterback. Hendon Hooker might not be ready to go, so don't be surprised if we see someone brought in to take some snaps, especially with Jared Goff likely sitting out the preseason action. So, Lions Nation, what do you think? These injuries are a tough pill to swallow, especially when you consider the potential that guys like Nate Lynn had. Do you think the front office has done enough with these recent signings? Will Jamarco Jones and Abraham Beauplan be able to step up and fill the void? And what about the possibility of adding a new quarterback to the mix? Who would you like to see in a Lions uniform? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We've got some news that's stirring up quite the conversation here in Detroit. Hendon Hooker, our promising rookie quarterback, is facing a bit of a setback. According to Coach Dan Campbell, Hooker is still in concussion protocols, and it's looking less likely that he'll be ready for practice this week. Now, this isn't just about missing practice, it's about those crucial reps that Hooker needs to develop into a solid backup quarterback for Jared Goff. Every snap he misses could be a missed opportunity to show what he's got. So, what does this mean for the Lions? Well, it might mean we're in the market for another backup QB. Some of you have been talking about this for a while, and the idea of bringing in someone like Ryan Tannehill has definitely divided opinions. Tannehill is a veteran, but he's also made it clear he still wants to be a starter. So, if not Tannehill, who else is out there? Names like Brian Hoyer, Blaine Gabbert, and A.J. McCarron are being thrown around, but let's be honest, none of them are particularly exciting options. This brings us to a bigger question. How important is a backup quarterback, really? Some of you might say, it's no big deal. We've got Goff, and we might never need a backup. But remember, a backup QB is like insurance, it's a waste until you actually need it. Tom Brady, one of the greatest to ever play, started as a backup. We need to think about the future here, and every day Hooker misses is a day lost in his development. So, Lions Nation, what do you think? Should we go all in on a veteran like Tannehill, or roll the dice with someone else on the list? Maybe there's another name out there we haven't even considered yet. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear from you. And while you're there, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss out on the latest Lions news. We're just days away from seeing this team in action again, and I know you're as excited as I am. As always, take care of yourselves, look out for each other, and go Lions!